Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino.
It is a fine day.
It is a lovely day, yes.
Yes.
The first day of fall, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what hasn't fallen...
Or autumn.
What hasn't fallen is our listeners, and we can't thank you enough.
Awesome.
I mean,
was
they just...
afraid you're going to say something else.
No. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Seriously, you guys are spreading the word, giving the love, and of course, giving a love to our buddy North there,
Mr. Jason Tadidas.
Yes, who I just found out I'm going to be meeting for the first time in person.
Well, hey, look, I haven't asked him if he wants to meet you yet, so hey, don't ride your high horse just yet, my friend.
That's true. He could be like, no.
Yeah, so thank you, listeners. Consider us peanut butter and spread the word.
And when you're doing that, make sure you come by the old ampsandaxescast.com.
Absolutely.
And you can check out all the stuff. There's an Amazon banner there. If you want to buy stuff, you click on that banner, you go through, you buy the thing, we get a little kickback. It's called Wetting Our Beaks. And you get your gift and we get a little bit, and guess who pays for that? Amazon does. Because they got drones and stuff.
Yeah, I think they can afford to kick $1 or $2 this way.
And
we thank them for that.
And we do thank them.
We absolutely thank them for that.
And
so we thank you. We thank them. We thank all.
Yeah, and the PayPal button there. That's if you feel extra generous. I like it's when you have a spare change.
Yes.
I don't know anybody has spare anything.
But I will tell you just from personal experience, there are one, maybe two sites that I occasionally need to go on to search for a schematic.
Yeah.
That I need maybe to write my column or to do a repair for something that I rarely need a schematic to repair anything, but occasionally I do, and sometimes it's for the column, and sometimes it's for this weird amp that I'll get in and go, okay, what's going on here? And some of these sites have a PayPal donate on, and if I find what I'm looking for on the site,
throw them a buck or two.
I'll kick them back something, because it's worth it. It helped me. So,
yes, and it helps us keep the lights on and keep the the bandwidth costs and all that stuff. I mean, it's all part of it.
That's right.
I wish I could tell everybody, look, it doesn't cost us a dime.
Right.
It does.
Technology is not free.
It is not. And
we're not even going to go that technology is your friend or not. We're not even going to have that discussion right now. But
we seem to be having that conversation so much. Look, here's how it works with that, okay? And I'll just say my piece, and we'll go on. It's not a big deal. We get some emails, and the guys are like, "Hey, don't bust on the technology." We really don't bust on the technology. What we're trying to, I think I can speak for you too, because I've known you for a long time now. We're just trying to say, look, you don't have to always go down that road because it's the road that everybody's going down right now. There is this thing of where it started, and you'd be surprised how much of a better musician you are if you do something as simple as learn how to tune your guitar instead of having a machine tune it for you.
Right.
Figure out a song without looking for the tablature or somebody showing you on YouTube.
Absolutely.
You will become a better musician.
Sit there in any room in your house and play your electric guitar unplugged.
Right there is volume. So many, you got the Apogee devices that plug it into your iPhone now. Everybody's, everything is like connected.
Right,
Everything's connected. You'd be really surprised how much your playing actually will get better if you're not plugged in anything playing electric.
Absolutely.
Because you hear the little clinks and clanks and stuff. Because when you got gain going on, you get away with a lot.
Oh, yeah.
When you don't have anything going on.
It's really forgiving as opposed to
Yes.
You can hear every nuance.
Yes.
And I mean, personally, I really, really enjoy that.
Yeah,
I am
I've
not the
been
best
doing it
player in the world at
forever.
all, but I love just sitting there and playing the electric unplugged. You know? And of course, you can hear how the guitar itself resonates, and you pick
Yes.
up a different guitar and you go, wow, this is really different.
Yep.
And guitars are different.
You
and-
learn the acoustic properties of an instrument real quick.
Yeah.
And if you really, really want to know how bad you play, buy one of Jeff's amps because it is going to tell on you in a heartbeat.
See, that's why I don't plug in. I don't. That's why I don't play. I'm scared.
Even the Buddhas, which I have one, I'm like, man, that thing's got a ton of gain, and I'm like, wow, do I suck?
No, you don't.
Well, I tell you what, though, it has, you get real conscious of what where you had your shortcomings. You have to kind of go back and go, I can't do that anymore because I don't have 70 dB a gain or whatever they claim that week,
And sometimes you will find, as I do find, that certain songs really want to be played on a certain guitar, and definitely don't want to be played on another guitar. And
yes,
a lot of times I don't think you will find those nuances when you're plugged in and gained out, because it all just sounds like the rig at that point, and you don't realize, you'd never get a chance to realize how much better it would sound on a different instrument if you're going to get graced enough to have more than one.
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. Yeah.
It really does. And you can hear the little nuances, and you can tell when you pick up two different guitars which guitar that song more wants to be played on. It's really strange, but you can do it.
And that is true, except for one guy. And that's who I'm going to talk about right now.
Oh.
Mr. Billy Gibbons.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so...
but there's a reason.
There's this whole thing. I don't know what it is, but this is like the second or third guitar rig rundown. That Premier's done.
Okay.
And usually we don't talk about this. We let Premier do their thing, but I saw it and I was like, I said to Jeff, I said, man, I got to talk about this. I saw some new stuff, and Elwood, his tech, kind of led on to some things that he didn't let on in the other ones. They kind of edited stuff in the older ones. So this is the way it works. They use Dusty. Okay, so Elwood had to do both rigs for this small tour that they're on right now. He's the guy.
Okay.
There's no bass tech on this one.
All right.
So they showed the rigs, and basically Dusty has the exact same rig as Billy, except for there's no guitar effects on Dusty's. They use JMP1s, the preamps from Marshall.
Very interesting for bass.
For both of them.
Yeah.
And the same valve state amplifiers, rack mount. That they have like one wedge, I guess, or something that the band comes through, and there's a ISO cab, and then there's a hot cab that is on this. I think side fills on the stage, and
where they can
then
hear themselves.
Yeah, and then they split it again, and there's a cabinet back with Elwood, a little tiny cabinet. And
that's pretty typical.
Yeah. So what? Okay. So as the time was going on, I was like, "What is the deal? Why is he so hell bent on these guitars that are, basically featherweight and all this other stuff?" Well, in this latest one, he doesn't say it because, see, I think people are under this misconception. Billy Gibbons is like he has his own speech. He has his own kind of flair, the way he gives his answers, and he really doesn't want the secrets out.
Yeah, well, he does it in his very colorful Billy speak.
Yeah. Okay, so as Elwood was going through the whole thing, I think what we stumbled upon is Billy likes to experiment with his live rigs. He likes to experiment with his live gear. So none of his guitars are made by Gretsch. None of his guitars are made by Gibson, and none of his guitars are made by Fender. They're all made by Bolin. Bolin is a prototype maker for those three companies. Gibson will give him, like, say, we want you to build the Pearly Gates. He will build the Pearly Gates guitar to make it look and sound and, do all the little nuances, and then hand it off to Gibson, and then they build it. They do their thing.
Interesting.
So so then he builds the Pearly Gates, and I'm doing quotes in the air, and it weighs as much as a Martin acoustic. The one that Billy uses on stage.
Right.
Chambered neck, chambered headstock, chambered body. And I mean, when we're talking chambered, these things are canoed out to no end.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably maybe getting a 1/4 inch of wood all the way around and some blocks in the center for the bridge. The rest of it is basically like a featherweight acoustic, and that's why the 7s are on there, so they can do that without having to
Right,
worry
you don't
about
have to deal with tension.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Because you start stepping up the gauges. We all know it starts getting heavy. You need more wood. So what they do is they have this spectrum analyzer device, and the thing is, they don't show you that. They don't show you a close up of that. So I have no idea what the manufacturer is.
Right. No, I have seen this or a similar rig rundown where
They show
I
it.
found out about.
Yeah, they show it from an angle. They don't show it dead on, right? So what they do, they don't even bring the vintage guitars out anymore, because Elwood said, I can't leave the side of the stage, because at one point he said he had like 7 58 and 59 Les Pauls on one of the early gigs. He said, what do I do?
Right.
He goes, I can't go anywhere if somebody takes one of these, So they eliminated that. So what they do is they plug in, and I'm sorry, they don't plug in. They hook up to the wireless, right? The wireless runs to the amp splitter, which runs into the preamp, and then it goes into the EQ and then out to the power amp.
Right.
Right. Well, what they do is they take that feed, they play a G chord on the real Pearly Gates, they get the spectrum curve from that before it gets to the power amp.
I think they do the spectrum curve sans EQ because they want the natural sound.
Maybe that's what they do, but it does come out of the JMP1 and go into that.
Yeah.
Right. So they do that, and then they capture that print, and you can see it. It's like these dots on this screen. Then what they do is they hook up the other guitars, and they do this. The Telecasters, the Gretches, the Les Pauls, whatever it is.
And they EQ them to sound like
exactly
the
like
Pearly
that.
Gates, right?
And the reason that they do it is because Billy says he wants it homogenized. He does not want any guitar to sound like a different guitar. He wants them all to sound like that 59. And then, that's how it goes. There's some pedal effects. Elwood controls all that. And he said they've had guitars that have completely failed. They had these purple Telecaster looking guitars, Bolin made. He said they were horrible. He said they could not, A, dial them in very well, and he goes, B, they just didn't play good because of all the featherweight, everything going on. They didn't ring well, stuff like that, right? So there's a Magnatone 59 head, one of the new 4-input Marshall-looking guys. When Billy turns down the JMP ones, because of the way that they're made, the volume goes down, but the gain stays the same. They don't clean up or anything.
Right.
So
Elwood, they were never one for responding to a volume control very well.
Exactly. So Elwood will actually switch to the Magnatone, and that's how he's able to turn down. Then when he turns back up, he goes back into the Marshalls. It's kind of weird.
It is kind of weird.
But I guess he's looking at the reliability of the Marshalls. I don't know. It's in a rack, and it's there, and there's another head too. There's a newer.
I mean, that's running JMP ones nowadays. I mean,
I don't know.
I would think that they're falling into the category of, okay, they're old enough to start breaking now.
You would think. I mean, Marshall does not make those anymore.
No.
You'd have to go on eBay. You'd be doing the eBay buys. But it was interesting. So he said, look, I want everybody to understand. He goes, Billy has a crazy extensive guitar collection at the ZZ Top warehouses, right? He said, all the guitars I show you, he goes, these are stage guitars.
Right.
These are not the guitars. He goes, when he goes into the studio, the real 59s there, the real 58s, he said everything is the real deal. And Billy, and you can hear it in all their recordings, he'll have Strats, he'll have Tellys, he'll have Gretches, he'll have Les Pauls, and he goes all within the same song. You know, he'll
there's probably tracks of every kind of guitar in just about every song.
Insane tracking on some stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you like listen to LaGrange and you're going, well, there's two or three different guitars on that.
Oh yeah.
You know, just in the solo area. You know,
Right.
like he's trading back and forth with himself. So it was very interesting to hear that all of the stuff about the sevens and all this that's all just basically him experimenting. It's all stage stuff, and the real stuff only gets put on to, the album stuff.
Well, there are so many good, sans the hollowing out and the cloning of all the other guitars. There are so many good guitars out there nowadays that aren't $250,000 that you can take out.
Mm-hmm.
Why risk? Why risk taking that out? Why risk? Because the insurance cost has to add to the
it's gotta
cost
be
of
insane.
the tour. It's got to be crazy.
Yeah.
So,
and he's buying guitars while they're out on the road.
Oh, yeah.
And I think some of the other thing is too is that it's also about he's not a young guy, so him strapping on a 12.5 pound Les Paul and going out and playing whatever, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is.
And it's fine if you play one weekend gig or two weekend gigs.
Yeah, they're doing it every night.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
they wear on him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he has a very light touch, they said, with his playing.
Mm-hmm.
He's using the Dunlop picks, but they're heavy. The
No more pesos.
Yeah, the peso thing, like Elwood said, he goes, I've been with him 20 years, never seen the peso.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that was for a little while,
back in the
really
day.
early
Yeah.
on, and it just takes on one of
The
those
Billy story.
Right.
The Billy
It
stories
takes
are...
on an urban legend status,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
that's what they roll with for 30 years.
As they were doing the rig rundown, the one girl said, I heard that he put helium into one of his guitars. And Elwood said there was a guitar, supposedly, that had an inner tube in it, in the chambers, and they tried filling it with helium.
Really?
So he could just kind of walk beside the guitar. He said, didn't work.
Didn't work.
And he goes, but here's the thing. He goes, that's all I've ever heard. He goes, I never saw it. And he goes, and it could be just one of those urban legends that, you can tell Elwood's like, I try to avoid Billy as much as possible. He goes, we've been around each other for 20 years. He goes, he asks for things, and sometimes I'm like, why? So it seems like, and
he's probably had his fill of trying to, defend or shoot down the urban legends, and probably gets asked every time,
all the time. Yeah.
It's like,
so
I just want to tune a guitar. I want to go home.
And he talks about how he's a punk rocker. And he's
funny.
the other end of the spectrum from where Billy is, and he hears some of the stuff that Billy says, and he just kind of smirks because he's like, "Just tell him," But it's Billy,
Hey, well, he has built this persona.
He absolutely has,
and
and you know what?
It's made them all a couple of dollars.
Yeah, and he's paid his dues.
Yes, he has.
But here's the other side, the real cool piece. He is going out on a solo project. He's got a solo album coming out. I don't know what it's going to be like because they mentioned the word Cuban type music, and I have no idea.
Wow.
But I do know that Elwood said that all this stuff, the spectrum analyzer and all that stuff, that isn't going to be on the tour. It's going to be the Magnatone, a 412 Magnatone cabinet, which has their own proprietary Eminence speaker,
And guitars.
And guitars, yeah. So I think it may be just a little bit of throwback for Billy. It's kind of weird because if you really think about it, ZZ Top, outside of Rush, and Rush really can't say it too because they did have one original drummer, even though Neil's been in the band since pretty much the first time,
right.
But
when they hit big.
Yeah, when there was one album that he was not on,
right.
Working Man, right? And the name of the album, or is it just Rush? I can't remember. I think it's just Rush, but Working Man is.
Well, it had
there.
to be the first album, right?
Yeah, the first album.
The first album is, yeah.
And but ZZ Top is the three original guys from day one. Ironically, the one guy with the last name Beard doesn't have one.
A beard, right?
And it was like, I remember growing up, and I'm sorry to go off on this tangent.
The great irony.
I remember growing up, and it was one of the things my buddy Steve, he said to me, he goes, "Did you ever look at the names of the guys in Black Sabbath, and I went, I never really gave it much thought. And he goes, Ozzy Osbourne, Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, Bill Ward. It's like you got Dusty Hill, Reverend Billy Gibbons.
One of these is not like the others.
Yeah, exactly. Frank Beard.
Frank Beard, right.
So anyway.
Well, speaking of one of these is not like the others. Our guest today is not like Billy Gibbons. I can't speak.
Not at all.
Not at all.
No. Gets praise. A second guy we've had on that gets praise from Mr. Steve Vai.
Mr. Steve Vai, right?
Yes.
And he's he's just one of those slackers on the Favored Nations label, and those guys can play a couple more notes than Billy F. Gibbons can.
The slacker.
And they're I love both sides of it. I do.
That's the cool part about this
Yeah.
business is that we can there's no end.
Right.
There's nobody says, "Oh, we finally came around. We've now surfed every website on the internet." There's no end to the guitars guys.
Right.
Girls. People.
Well, hopefully there's no end to the guitar guys for us. You may have surfed every site on the web, but hopefully we've not run out of guitars yet.
Believe me.
So we'll bring back our guest of the week, a Favored Nations artist and a very, very aspiring artist in Mr. Steve Vai's eyes.
Yes.
Mr. Rob Balducci.
Hi, I'm Daniele Gottardo. You are listening to Amps and Access.
All right, and we are back with our guest of the week, Mr. Rob Balducci. Rob, how are you, my friend?
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm doing good.
We're doing great, man. And we finally got you. Little technical difficulties here, but it sounds great now, and we're glad to have you with us.
If I could only play that audio on the show.
That would be 30 minutes of the most amusing audio you could.
It's a lot of me cussing.
Well, there's that. And there's pulling wires and swapping wires.
Oh my God!
And blaming it on the Mercury in retrograde and everything else.
Did you ever, real quick? Did you ever see the pictures of the Beatles when they were playing on top of that rooftop?
Oh yeah.
Did you ever see the wires?
Oh, the cabling? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was like, wait a minute, there's like 3 or 4 Vox amps out there and a drum set and 4 microphones, and it looked like literally like CMP had vomited on the
150 cables up there. Yeah. Yeah, we're just flinging cables around trying to figure out what's
That's
going
exactly what it looks like here.
That's right. But welcome, Rob. Enough of that. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, thanks so much for having me on too. I really appreciate you guys, and I'm excited.
Well, good.
See what you guys. I'm trying to think what you guys are going to throw at me.
Oh man, lucky you're not in the room. That's all I gotta say. But let's hey, let's go where I like to go all the time with our guests, and we're going to go in the Wayback Machine, and we're going to find out where Mr. Rob Balducci came from, and where he was born and raised, and what put this crazy music stuff in his head.
Yeah,
so tell us a little about yourself, man.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Queens, and I still live in Queens, New York. Basically as a kid, I'm a child of 4, so I have 3 siblings, and the 3 older sisters actually, and it was really, everyone thinks, wow, you 3 older sisters, no brother, what the hell's going to happen? But it was actually really cool, and that's really how the music thing kind of started. My older sister Barbara played, and there was a big range of age. She played acoustic guitar, and she turned me on to all different music that I probably wouldn't have been into. You know what I mean? At 8 years old, 9 years old, I was listening to of course the Beatles, but mostly like the Rolling Stones. And she had the Are You Experienced Jimi Hendrix record, and that kind of got the buzz going in my brain.
Cool.
Yeah, I want to ask Rob real quick. That album, we get a lot of that album.
What Are You Experienced?
Are You Experienced?
It was a game changer.
What
man.
was and I'll ask Jeff this too. What was the thought that was going through your head when you heard some of the stuff that was on that album? Because that was sonically, that was different than most anything that had ever been done.
As far as I could remember, nothing like it came before it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and just like, is that a guitar? Like, what is some of that noise?
It was shit. It was extraterrestrial, man. It really was. It's like, and you could just, those are the days when you just put the headphones on and you just lay back.
Well, it was stereo, remember?
Oh yeah, yeah.
and they were using that. Remember, they would bounce back and forth. What about you, Rob? I mean, what was your thoughts, if you can remember?
Yeah, well, you know what? When I first heard it, I was a little kid, so I really didn't know too much. I started playing, the guitar around 11. So when I first heard this, I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I would guess, and my sister was playing it, and I just thought it was definitely, not what I was hearing coming out of the room before. You know what I mean? It was kind of like some weird, stuff going on, and I was like, I remember looking at the record cover and thought it was interesting, and then I actually stole it from him, and I still have that record.
Wow.
The original vinyl.
Yeah.
That's
with the pops and scratches, of course.
Of course.
Right.
It wouldn't be the same without it.
Exactly, it wouldn't.
Yeah, but that's a very influential age, because I was, I guess I was right around that age when the Beatles were on Sullivan. And, even up to Elvis, I really didn't pay too much attention to Elvis. But when the Beatles hit, that, and like from a lot of our guests, of the same age, that just made a huge impact. It's like all of a sudden you took notice of this thing that was different than anything else. If you were around that same age when you heard "Are You Experience," I would imagine that left a pretty deep mark.
It did.
So.
That's
pretty cool.
The thing is, like, my sister was like, a teenager when the Beatles whole phenomenon came out. So she was older than I was. But you know how they say, like, you have either you like the Beatles or you like the Rolling Stones. I was more of a when I got turned on to the music, the Beatles I learned to like older, but for some reason the Rolling Stones, even at when I started playing guitar at 11 years old, I wanted to be Keith Richards for some reason, and I really gravitated towards listening to a lot of the Rolling Stone stuff from her collection.
So you were just a ne'er-do-well from early age, a rabble-rouser. That's cool, because that's kind of like the two schools,
Well, at least
although the Stones weren't really like that in the very beginning, but
No.
they kind of gravitated towards the bad boys. Again, we found a lot of Beatles, we found a lot of Kiss, but not so many Stones, which I found amazing.
Yeah.
I thought we would find an equal mix of Beatles and Stones influence from all of our guests. Some Beatles, some Stones, but so I'm glad you gravitated towards the Stones. And so you started playing at 11. What was the first rig, the first guitar, and do you still have it?
Well, the first guitar that I had was my sister's acoustic guitar, and I think I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right, but I still have the guitar. And it's like very high action, but I think acoustic company, they're called Sakova or something like that.
Okay,
had to be one of those
generic things that
came and went.
Right, it was sold in this music store chain or this
Sears
or something.
Yeah,
who knows?
And I had that, and she showed me a couple of chords, your open chord voicings and stuff, and then. I started taking lessons from a local guitar shop in Queens, and it was called Larry Downs Music. It's actually not there anymore, but and that's what once I started taking lessons, then everything I started to really get serious and more interested in learning and stuff.
Yeah, that's good, and it's good that you actually stuck with it with all of our infamous guitars that had half-inch action off the fretboard. It's like
it's amazing.
That caused half the people to just put the guitar down and go,
that's
forget
what I'm
it,
saying.
man. I'd rather get hit with a football.
Do you know how many probably Joe Satriani level guitar players just gave up day 2 because they couldn't make a guitar that under what was it, $500 back then that could play.
Right.
Yeah.
My fingers
Well,
are bleeding.
Well, you know what happened to me. On a serious note here. Since we're going back, I talked about this before in some interviews, but like basically, what really made me start to get into the guitar even more at that age was, around the same time I started to get serious about the guitar, I came down with type 1 juvenile diabetes. And so that kind of, the guitar, the whole guitar thing was sort of like an escape, from reality for me, I think. And I think it really made me focus and on playing and learning, because when I was enjoying the music thing, I really didn't have to think. I kind of escaped the what was going on there, especially as a kid. It's hard to handle that when you get that at that age.
Yeah.
So and then the other thing is, I come from an Italian family. Of my parents come from my mother's a child of 11.
Wow.
And so my godmother, when I came down with this thing, she wanted to buy me something. So I kind of was spoiled. My first electric guitar after this horrible acoustic guitar was a Gibson. It was called The Paul.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we know that.
There's those walnut guitar, when they first came out.
Yep.
Hell, not bad for a second guitar.
That's like a home run.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I still have that guitar.
Wow.
Cool.
And the rig that the amp that I got at that point was this little Yamaha RG80 or something like that. It's a 112 Yamaha, which I wish I still had, and that was my rig for a long time.
Wow. It's a solid state thing, right? The RG?
Yeah. Mike Soldano, he did a hot rod version of some Yamaha amp.
Well, yeah, he did a
he did like
I don't know if it was him or not, but there was a tube version of a Yamaha amp later on down the line that was very similar to the Mesa stuff that was out at that point.
Yeah, so the
that's certainly not going back this early though.
Was it Yamaha? And I'm sorry we're going off on a tangent, but Jeff Beck there used to be guitar ads where Jeff Beck would be sitting like in the desert with this stack with his Telecaster, and it was a convertible. You could pull
that was Seymour Duncan.
That was a Seymour Duncan. Yeah, that was cool. That was cool, right?
Yeah.
And was that Soldano? Did he have his hands in that?
No.
No, it was just Seymour.
Seymour
yeah.
and Company. Yeah.
He builds good stuff, Seymour.
Those those modules. It was a great idea.
Yeah.
Just the connectors wouldn't be they weren't very roadworthy.
Really?
I was a lot of times I was always retensioning those for guys and cleaning them and trying to make the thing work again.
And
very cool idea.
And who stole that idea and still using it is Randall. They have their little modules that they plug in. You can buy like a 4-channel head. You get the Lynch.
Well, that's a Bruce Egnator design. That's
Bruce builds a whole line of those things.
Bruce
That's right. Yeah.
So but that's way jumping ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. I do that a lot, Rob. So,
but I progress. So let's digress.
Yes.
All right. So you're you've got your The Paul and this Yamaha amp. Did you start playing with anybody at that point, or your sister was musical? Did you do a family thing, or
Well, I wasn't really the one that wanted to get. I was shy as a kid, and I really didn't want to get up in front of the family. So my sister was the one that had to get her acoustic out and play. When people came over, and I kind of just stayed in my room and and played by myself. But what I did, around the age of 13, 14, I got into. Things happened really fast because I really started to practice. So at 13 or 14, I got into my first band, and I started gigging. All these guys were older than me. They were probably like 18, 19, and we did Stones. At that point we were doing, I think that we were doing some Cars. What else? We were doing some Rush, and I wasn't able to get into any of the clubs because I was underage. So my dad used to be like the chaperone. He used to drive me to all the shows, and I would go and I would play. And it was fun, and it ended up being that the guy. You guys are probably familiar with the other guitar player in the band was the guy who ended up being in Warlock years later. His name is Tommy Bolin.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool.
So we were doing stuff. We were doing AC/DC, Highway Star. At that point, I started to get into what my friends were into, which was, there was Kiss was big at that time. Ted Nugent. A lot of people don't mention Ted Nugent, but that double live Gonzo record is just amazing guitar work on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that was him and Derek, right?
Yes.
I think.
And I got to play that album, I think, one time in my house until it got to Wang Dang. Sweet Tang. Yeah. He does a little speech at the beginning of that.
Yes.
And tells everybody where they can go if they don't like it.
Well, Ted? No.
Not Ted.
He's just gotten crazier. But
yeah. Cut all of his hair off. Now he's a politician.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Bow-toting politician. But anyway.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty cool and typical repertoire to play during that time.
Sure.
Let me see. You said Cars, so you were probably doing the disco era Stones.
Yeah, but but see, I had to play. I had my choice of that. I was the Stones guy in the band, so we did "Sympathy for the Devil," and we kind of spanned. Then we, of course, we did. I used to love Shattered, so we did Shattered, and of course, we were doing some Zeppelin too. That was probably the first guitar solo the first solos that I learned was "Sympathy for the Devil," and "Good Times, Bad Times."
Oh, nice.
Well, that's a little bit of a run in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sympathy off of Yayas, I would guess.
Right.
Yeah. That's a great solo, and I love the tone because at that point the guitar players were playing Ampeg V4 amps.
Yep.
And they had a mid-range control on them, and I still like to this day. It will cause you to go deaf, but I really like it because you can crank the hell out of 1K. There's a 1K setting on there, and that guitar will sustain for days.
Yes,
and it will also cause you to need a hearing aid. So, but they were such great sounding amps, and occasionally they would play the Dan Armstrong Lucite guitars.
Yes,
yeah,
which I really enjoyed. But God, that's worse than a Les Paul.
Yeah, you would look at that and think, oh, it's a piece of plastic.
Yeah.
And then you go to pick it up and you go, that's 17 pounds of plastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's so the high school band took you where? What was the next step on the Balducci ladder?
Well, what was going on? So I was in this band. This was a band that was called Vision, and it was with my buddy Tommy Bolin, who we still keep in contact.
Cool.
That was for quite a while, and then I have to bring it up, but I got into the whole girl singer band thing.
Okay.
And that was okay. It wasn't my favorite kind of stuff, but the chick was hot, and I was still young, and again, everybody older than me, so I was probably like 16, 17 at that point. And we were doing the Pat Benatar stuff, and I think we even, God forbid, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I had to play like Our Lips Are Sealed or something like that in that band by the Go-Go's, which is horrible.
Hey, but if the band's bookable,
yeah.
If you were making $1 at 16, playing guitar, well, good on you, man. Good on you. It keeps you in music.
Right, but at that point, I can explain to you some funny stuff that was going on. So at that point, I still had the Paul, and I ended up. It's weird, man. I got it. I don't know. I think I saw an ad in the paper for a Marshall stack or something like that, a half stack or stack, and I'm a young guy. So my father drives me over. To meet this guy. His name was Don Pagano, and he was a guy in Queens. It wasn't too far from my house. And we go in, and he's probably around I don't know. I still, that's the thing. I still know this guy today, but this guy had these Marshalls, these red Marshalls. He actually had a 412 top and a 412 bottom and the head. And he sold me the whole stack for $1,000.
Whoa.
Wow.
So he obviously was a crack addict that needed money.
I know this guy. There was no crack back then, son.
I'm sorry. Straight Coke.
Right.
Possibly, but I don't think
this
so. I think he
name.
was just, he was older, and I think he saw that, I started to jam with him and his band a little bit, and I think he saw that, like, that I was really into guitar, and I guess he wanted somebody to have the amp, you know what I mean? So he sold me the stack, and it ended up being, and I still, the cabinets have been on, every one of my CDs. They were like in the late '60s cabs with the original Greenback Celestians, a slant bottom and a regular bottom, and the head, I'm gonna curse right now, like a jerk that I am. I ended up selling the head because I needed some money for other stuff, but I still have the bottoms, and I'm still using them. I don't bring them out to play anymore. I have them in my home studio, and that's what I used to record with.
So what model was the head?
It was a freaking,
Was it just the 4-input 100-watt?
It was a Plexi 100-watt.
Holy crap!
Red Plexi.
Oh
wow!
And that was original red.
Yeah. Original red.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's worth $1 or $2.
You sold it for a chick, didn't you? You got the money.
Needed dinner or movie money, didn't you?
I don't think so, but I feel bad about it now.
We won't rub it in too much.
No, because you know what? Somebody approached me, when they saw the bottoms, and they said, I looked it up. I think that if I would have had the head and the two bottoms, the whole stack, I think I could have probably got somebody quoted me like $30,000.
Yeah, that might be a bit high, but I don't think it's all that off the mark.
Here's what I saw. Here's what I saw on eBay today. It was a 1966 kitchen Marshall.
Kitchen Marshall. Wow.
$89,999 on eBay. Yeah.
Wow.
90 grand.
$90,000
for a Marshall head made in '66.
Wow.
90. Look, he's got it out there for 90 grand.
Right.
$90,000. What do you think? You think get a clone built?
I think that's the only thing I've ever heard being attempted to sell for more than a D-style amp.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
I keep forgetting when you say that. I have to think about it for a second.
Oh yeah.
And speaking about the Marshall was it was original. Everything was original, but it was modded. It was modded by a place in Jersey, and his name was Dennis Electronics, and he's the guy that
Denny Kager.
Yeah, I don't know his last name. I just know his first name was Dennis.
I'm pretty damn sure that's Denny Kager from Ampeg.
Okay, he did the mods on it, which were really cool. It had a switch in the back that he put a master in one of the front four inputs, and then there was a big switch on the back that would go back to original, or if I wanted the other way, I would switch it back.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably did the cascading input kind of thing before they came out with the 2-input master volume Marshall series.
Yeah. It's always funny when you see one of those Marshalls. Every time I look at the 4-input ones, I always look for that knob because I'm like, is it modded? Because that's exactly what every guy does.
I did that to my red one too.
Yeah, you put that master volume right in there. It's
right.
Why waste the space, right?
Why drill a hole?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's funny because I'm pretty sure I've been to Dennis Electronics in years back.
Yeah.
Because I was born and raised in North Jersey, so I'm familiar with some of those guys up there as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think he ended up coming out with. Didn't he end up coming out with like an amp called the Sundown or something like that?
Sundown, yeah, that's Denny Kager.
Yeah. That was him.
Yep.
Is he still alive?
I don't know.
I don't know either. There were a few guys around that area that came out of Ampeg that went on to do good things.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We'll have to see if we can find him.
The other one's Ken Fisher.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. He's no longer with us.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I know of
Trainwreck, right?
of this Dennis. Yeah, Trainwreck.
Trainwreck was Ken Fisher.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So you took this whole red full stack and took it out and annihilated people in clubs with it, right?
Basically, me and my poor father helped me carry it.
I remember those days.
Well, God bless your dad. My dad would have been like, "What are you, out of your mind?"
Mm-hmm.
I know. My parents are pretty cool, and around this era of when this was going on. So basically, what happened is my parents, we used to go. It brings back it's the title of my new CD. So my new CD is called 821 Monroe Drive, and that's an address out on Long Island that one of my mom's sisters left to me and my family. And my mother and father used to go out there, and I used to go out there as a little kid during the summer, like when school was out. And then when you're a teenager, I'm in a band and stuff. I don't want to go out to Long Island. I want to stay in New York with my friends and play. Mm-hmm. So they left me at home with my older sisters to basically watch. And that's when all havoc broke. The Red Marshalls ended up going in the living room, and I was blasting and stuff. The neighbors complaining, and my father was so cool because he would make a visit, just to make sure I didn't kill myself or something, and he would come and the neighbors would say, Mr. Balducci, your son's been blasting the stuff. And you must make him stop and stuff. My father goes to the woman. What does your son do for a living? So the woman goes, well, he drives a bus. He says, do I tell your son when to drive a bus? He says, my son's a musician. He says, my son's a musician, and then as long as it's not past 10 o'clock at night, shut the hell up. You know what I mean?
That's cool, man.
That is awesome. My parents were just as cool. That is so cool, man. My parents were just as cool. We used to practice downstairs.
Yeah.
And a lot of the sound was most of the lower level. The basement was underground. But there were the windows towards the upper part.
Sure.
Of it.
Yeah.
So my dad made these insulated panels that would go in the windows when we rehearsed.
Very cool.
It's like, this is okay. I will try to appease the neighbors. This is all I can do. And now the neighbors, you just got to shut up. There's no more I can do, and my kids are going to play downstairs.
Yeah.
And God bless. God bless them. I love parents that are encouraging like that.
Yeah, because there could be the ones that are like, not in my house.
Mm-hmm.
I remember driving great lengths to go to some place where we could have rehearsal. One time we rehearsed in a barn, right? And
That's pretty cool, actually.
That's not too bad.
Yeah,
until it's 20 below outside. There's no heat in a barn.
Right.
And you can see the outside between the slats.
So you got to bring the cows and the horses in.
Yeah. It was just the most bizarre thing I've ever done.
Totally. So where were you guys playing at that point, and how what happened that jumped you to the next level? I mean, where did this start getting involved in the professional level, and how did you kind of get into the favored nations camp? Let's go there.
Sure. Well, basically, what ended up happening was I jumped around from some bands. After that girl band thing that I ended up quitting, and I ended up getting into another band that was like a little bit more heavier. And at that point, I think the name of the band was called Without Warning, and that's how I met the drummer that's on my debut CD, which came out like around in 1995. And we were playing originals with covers like Iron Maiden stuff. It was very progressive stuff, but cool. We always had a problem with, to be honest with you, always had a problem with the singers in the bands. There was always somebody quitting, and there was always the lead singer disease. It's a real thing, and
don't I know it? Jesus Christ!
So basically, what ended up happening, I just decided to, and plus I was into, at that time, the Satriani had come out, and Flexible Leftovers was out by Steve Vai, and that whole kind of thing, and plus going in reverse, going back to that same time with my sister's records. I remember the first instrumental record I ever heard was Jeff Beck Wired, which I loved. So like all this stuff was going through my brain, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write some of my own stuff, and the stuff that I have written, I'm gonna make it to instrumental stuff, and I'm gonna do this instrumental thing. And the drummer that was in the last vocal band, his name is Keith Caramella. Him, and at that time, I think when this really started going, it was a bass player named Danny Miranda, who's actually, he's ended up, he's on my first CD. He's in, he played with, before this new Queen thing. He was in Queen for a while in Blue Oyster Cult.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, it was a really, really great bass player, and he's still, he's from the island. I think he still, lives around there. And we started just playing, playing the circuit. We played L'Amours. We started opening up for like Steve Morse and other players like that. And so we, at the same point, I ended up going to, while all this was going on, ended up going to a music college, and then I ended up I figured, where do you get contacts and stuff? Go to a record label. So I ended up working close to where I live in Queens. There was, Important Records, Relativity Records, which was where,
where Joe
Flexible was and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
I got a job there. And
that was a small company at that time, right?
Yeah.
Because Joe signed with those guys.
Relatively?
Yep. And kind of put them on the map.
Yes.
And I heard that they were like overwhelmed on that first on Surfing with the Alien when that thing started taking off.
Yeah, I was there.
They were kind of like, whoa, shit.
Yeah.
Because it really took off, and they were small. And this was back in the day when.
Yeah, it's around 88, 89 was when that, And so that's like sort of what, I started doing that, and, there's, at that time I was still playing and I was trying to make contacts. I ended up meeting Satriani at that point, who, when he came down to the office, and I was, giving my demos out to everybody. And, it's a cool story about Joe. It's a funny story about Joe is I ended up hanging out with him. He played at some I think it was MTV Unplugged. He played, and I was working at the label, and I went to go see this thing, and I knew Joe was into Jimi Hendrix a lot, so I like had all these bootleg, and at that time it was cassettes, so I did like all these cassette things of these bootlegs I had, and I gave it to him, and it struck up conversation, and we started talking, and then I slipped him a demo of mine, and one day I come home, and I'm still living with my parents, but my girlfriend was there, and she actually picked up the phone, and some guy said, Joe's there. I probably have his posters hanging in my studio and in my room and everything. So she says, some guy, it's one of your friends messing around with you. Some guy said they were Joe Satriani and said that they called. So I was like, you sure was it Joe? She said, yeah. She says, it sounds like one of your friends playing a joke. So I was like, all right, so, 2 days go by, I go back to work, and then Joe calls me at work, and he says, I called, Rob, I ended up calling you at house, and some girl hung up on me. So I was like, oh, thanks. I said, yeah, she thought you were one of my friends playing a joke. But
well, lucky you worked with him. Otherwise, that could have been a whole dashed career right there.
Yeah, I know.
Go home and break up with her. You bitch. Hey, guess what? It was Joe.
Right.
Thank you.
That ended up happening after we got married. I did break up with her.
See, it just took a while.
Oh, that's too funny.
But he was cool, man. He gave me some critique on it, and he liked the tone, and he gave me some ideas on recording. And back then, I was just doing it like on a 4-track thing. So that's the label thing worked out because I started to meet people, and I eventually ended up meeting Steve Vai through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it was around 1990, and I had the material for the first CD, which is called Balance. And around 1995 is when that came out, and I made some connections over at Important Records, which now turned into Red Distribution, and they had an independent label there called Circumstantial Records. It was distributed through Red and Sony, and they put out my first record. And it did good. It was released in Japan and over here in Europe, and kind of put me on the map. It also I put a lot of my own money into promoting it and doing ads in magazines. Got crazy credit card bills and everything. And of course, all the luck. The independent label. After a little while, that label goes out of business. So I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? So I already started working on the second record. which was called Mantra. And at that point, I heard rumors that Steve was starting a record label, and Favorite Nations. So I had contact information from him because I worked at the label, and I ended up sending him off. The record was recorded. I just didn't have a place to put it out, and after he listened to it some time, I guess it took him a little while because he was just starting the label. He ended up contacting me, and he wanted to put it out and do like a test pressing in Japan first. So we released in Japan, and then did good, and then we released it in Europe and here, and then from there, that's sort of that set the stage for that. And my so I have 3 records that came out, 2 records after that came out on Steve's label, which was The Color of Light and Violet Horizon. And the new record did not come out on that label because, basically, everyone knows the industry right now is just, for actual physical CDs, it's just not, it's not, a label. It's very hard for a label, especially an independent label, to make money. So that kind of got, I would assume it got kind of shut down. I did send him the CD. He listened to it. He said some nice words about my new CD, but he said that at this point they're not really doing that with Favorite Nations right now. So I released it myself, which really is the way everyone's doing it now.
It's true. Yeah. It's true.
If you're heavy in the social media and you got you keep it in front of people, it can do just as good as anything else.
That's the thing with technology. It's much easier to do your own self promotion now,
and cheaper
and cheaper. Yeah, I mean, you used to have to go to a label.
Yeah.
For that's one of the reasons you had to go to the label. It's like, how do I promote this thing? Well, the label's got got somebody to promote it, and they can get it out there in front of people, and do ads and things like that. Now with social media, it's like anybody can do that.
Oh yeah, and they do.
And they do.
Yeah,
and it's
you got to wade through a lot of crap.
You do, and.
Unfortunately,
but there's still no okay. If I do this, then this is going to happen. It's still hit and miss.
It's like this podcast
with everything. I mean, it's hit and miss with everything out there.
Yeah.
I think now you really what's going on it's really all gone back to grassroots again. You know what I mean? Where it's bands. It's good for the bands. Because I've been through the business side of the record labels, and basically. It's not really worth it for an artist to put something out to a label anymore because they have to split the royalties. If you want to buy CDs to sell on the road, you have to pay so much money. Now you could print up your own CDs, for $1,000. You can get a bunch of CDs and double your money when you sell them on tour.
Yeah. Right.
And the whole digital thing, there's so many companies now. There's Disc Makers, the CD Baby that puts it out. They put it out the digital distribution on and all the downloadable sites. So really, if you look at it, that's what most of especially like artists like the kind of stuff that I do, and like even like I just looked up, Scott Henderson just released his through the same avenues. That's what it's come down to. You know what I mean? It's the only way to do it.
Yeah. And it's I don't know. I don't know what makes more money nowadays of like touring, because you do have to go out
and promote
and
thing.
Tour it.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be the guys that are most successful. They're just on the road all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
And you do the tour thing, and of course there's payment for the performance, but then there's also merch, and some guys make out better, with the tour money. Some guys make out better with the merch.
Yeah.
It all depends how it's set up and where they're touring, but it seems like you got to do both. Because nobody's doing anything for you anymore.
Oh no. No, and
if you could sell digital, that's great too.
The record companies, I was reading the other day, they're not interested in another Rolling Stones. They're not interested in a band that can have 20 years because they want the fresh. They want that one that's making the, and that's why you see this ramp of, I'm talking like what's on the radio. All the radio has been pretty much destroyed. because now it's just one cookie cutter station after another.
It's all pablum and
and you can tell by how they record that most of it isn't even real musicians. It's all auto align and time aligned and auto tune and everything else. So this is definitely like the Aristocrats and all that. It's all green. It's all grassroots stuff. And that's why you got to wade through the crap to find the good stuff.
Love Guthrie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it is. The basically what that's what ruined the industry in itself, because basically what happened is to me, this is, I've seen it and I've been in the mix of it, and to me, the best way for me to explain what I think is, it turned out to be, there's no more like there used to be people running labels that were, I call them the Music Man president, and now there's now the people running the company. What changed over in the last decade, it's the financial people are running the music instead of the music person, the lover of the music. So like if I started my own back then, like for instance, Relativity was Barry Coburn that started that company, and he started the company because he believed in music, and it's a different, there's a different energy around that kind of thing, and it's not really all about the money. That's lost now. They want you come out with your record. They only care if it's the big thing is how's it do the first month or the first 2 weeks. That's when the big splash is, and then they forget about it and they go on to the next group, and then they release that and they get whatever money they can, and there's no development.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what's wrong.
Back in the day, I've heard stories. The record guys, they were into the band, so they would go hang out with the band because they wanted to be cool. And they bring a bunch of coke, and they were doing everything. They were doing the rock star thing because that's what they wanted to do.
Right.
And the money was just money.
But then they were also promoting the bands.
Absolutely. Because they believed in the band.
Because they believed in the bands.
Yeah.
And a lot of bands fell by the wayside when their rep left or got canned or something, and the next guy or the remaining people
was not a big fan.
We're not big fans. It's like, well, now we're not getting the love, and that's sad. But as sad as that is, it is just completely different now. And there's just the only love is the love of money. And you're right. What does it do in the first 2 weeks? That's when everything goes viral, and everything goes crazy, and screaming girls and guys and everything else. And 2 weeks later, if they're still doing well, this band might actually have a good life. They might last a year or two.
What did Hagar say? He says you don't make million sell you albums that sell millions of copies. You make singles. Now, and he said that's the hard part, because you go into the studio, you want to cut 13 tracks, and they're looking at this bill, and they're going, well, should we just
give it's because nobody even buys albums anymore.
Yeah,
they
crazy.
just buy the single.
I buy the damn album. I
buy the album.
Yeah.
Because we're old school, but I mean, not everyone's like that.
No. And a lot of albums, they're, at least back in the day, like not so much now anymore. There are some bands that are doing it, but a lot of albums, were more or less, some were designed to be, some just kind of fell into the vibe, but they were kind of a concept thing. And, a couple of great songs, fantastic, but you should have the opportunity to listen to the whole package, and people just, the memories and attention spans.
Well, we're all 3 seconds.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything is in 6-second bites nowadays.
It's kind of scary in that sense, because when you're a musician and you're trying to write a 4-minute song,
right?
It's like, can you keep them captured for 4 minutes?
That's the thing is, like, that's why it goes back to artists and now with, like, when I do a record, I actually, when I doing my records, I listen to I actually spend time on what song is going to be first, and what song and how it goes into the next one, and how the record feels, because you have to, my thing is the listener's going to be listening to it from front to end, and not singles. You can listen to it single wise, but that's my process.
Good.
That's how I think.
It's a good process, and that's what I was alluding to. It's like, even if it's not a quote unquote concept album, there's a flow to it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that flow is purposely thought out, and you really should give it the respect that it deserves by listening to the whole damn thing.
Now, here's something for you. I went and bought Rio Grande Mud, ZZ Top.
Okay.
1972.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? And it had Francine and Just Got Paid.
Okay.
Right? But it had 8 other songs that I've never heard. And I was like, holy crap, this album is amazing.
It's so good, right?
It is so good. And it's ZZ Top in the raw.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? There was a lot of layers of stuff in there, but it was just those 3.
Right.
And it's like, you got to give that chance. Yeah, there's the stuff that we all know, but there's so much more that we may not know, that you pick up this album from all this, and it carries.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that's what people are missing, because it's like, yeah, maybe they have this song that made the radio, but there's a whole nother side, like a John Mayer.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And if they're just a little boy band, they only have one song that's
that's
any
true.
good, So let's go back to the real talented people that actually have an entire offering full of good stuff.
Must be something with New York, because you had Satch, you have Steve Vai, you got Rob. It's like you got Andy Aladort. It's like this crazy world.
So many
up there.
good bands come out of New York. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
bands and guitar players.
Right,
all of them are Italian.
Listen,
Totally.
don't forget, Andy Timmons is from Queens as well.
Oh,
Even though he lives in Texas.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Andy's no slouch.
Yeah.
No way.
He's a great player. So, Rob, are you touring this stuff? Are you playing locally? Are you doing a lot of studio work? What's in the bag now?
So, well, again, for like artists like me, basically what I try and do is, because it's all, it's all done myself. So what I try and do is we try and do, like, we can't go out for, like, just because of expenses, we can't go out for, like, a couple of months, so we kind of do it like a 2-week period.
Yeah.
We'll go out, we'll do a certain area. What I try and do is I try and team up with somebody like in the same vein. So, I brought up Andy Timmons before. Andy Timmons and I did some shows, and we played through Dallas.
Nice.
I hooked up with Richie Kotzen, and we did like a UK thing, and we also did some shows in LA. And then Dave Weiner and I, Dave Weiner is a solo artist, and he also is the second guitar player with Steve Vai's band. He's been in there for a while, and him and I started this thing we call it a Night of Pure Guitar, and we started it a few years ago. And when he's not playing with Steve, we try and get together and do some dates. So right now that's what we're doing. He's re-releasing one of his CDs with some extra tracks and re-recording some stuff, and I just released my new CD. So we're starting to do. We're going to start like a Northeast thing. We're going to go out and adding dates on as they come. So we got a couple of dates in. First date is November 13th in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Then we're playing November 14th in Binghamton, New York. I think we're going to Jersey. We're going to do one in New York, in Connecticut, and then we'll stop, and then we'll wait a little bit, and then we'll go to another area. And that's sort of the plan.
Well, let us know. You said Northeast. Let us know when you get to the
Baltimore area.
Yeah, the Baltimore, Washington area, and come down this way.
Definitely.
We'll definitely check you out for sure.
Yeah, man.
We'd
You
love
could
to.
check all. For people listening, please check out the my website. It's robbalducci.com, and you could check what's happening on there. I update a lot of stuff on there, and on social media I'm on there too. I'm posting all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you playing now? What's your rig nowadays? Guitar and amp? And are you real or are you virtual, or what are you going to go out with when you do this?
Well, this is new for me. I'm an amp guy, man. Like I am, I still have the Marshalls, and I'm a big Soldano guy, and I have. You guys familiar with Cornford?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I was endorsed with Cornford for a while. They're no longer making stuff right now, but I have an MK2, the 50 watt that has the clean and dirty channel. I'm a big fan of 50 watt amps. That's a 50 watt amp. I have a Soldano Hot Rod Plus that I love. And I'm of course my Ibanez guitars. It's been such a long time that I'm with these guys. I've been endorsed with Ibanez now. A lot of my endorsements for it's been 20 years. I've been with Ibanez.
Wow.
So the thing that's new now for me is I got into. The modeling thing has been around, and I played through the Axe effects, and I liked it, and there's the Kemper out there. But I was at NAMM one year, and I was playing. So it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and I had a show there, and I was playing with my band, and this guy Mark Gallo comes up to me, and he goes, and he's with his friend Phil, and they're like, hey Rob, man, aren't you from Queens? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I'm from Queens. I have a company called Studio Devil. So I was like, oh, cool. I said, well, what is it? And he says, it's modeling software stuff. So he says, why don't you stop by the booth? So I went to the booth at NAMM, and it was just a software plugin that Mark Gallo, he did the modeling, and he's the genius behind it, and he did the stuff. And I was playing through it, and I was like, wow. I says, it really sounds and feels like an amp. So I kept in touch with him. I started using their stuff for recording, and I demoed at their booth for a couple of years, and then recently, what they did was they hooked up with a company called Atomic Amps, and who did the physical pedal. It's called the amplifier pedal, and Mark Gallo from Studio Devil did all the modeling, and it's a modeling pedal that goes on the floor. It's got they modeled my cornfield in there, so it's called the cornfield, and they modeled a Soldano in there, and it's got you're modeling stuff. But to me, it sounds really, really good because I'm telling you that I wouldn't be using it, and that's what I'm going to be using. I'm using my preamp sounds are coming from the pedal, and I'm using the power amp, Studio 290 Mesa Boogie 290 power amp.
Okay.
Running that, and that's where my sounds are coming from.
Wow! So your amp is on the floor.
Amp is on the floor, and the cool thing about it is I'm really into pedals. I still have a small pedal board that goes in front of it, like I have an overdrive. Like I love overdrives. It reacts just like an overdrive. I put the overdrive in front of this other pedal that has the amp sounds in it. Reacts like an overdrive would. It pushes it and feeds back, and that's what I'm using.
So there's no multi effects on the.
It does come with multi effects inside. It comes with. I'm using the delay from there. It comes with reverb. It comes with chorus. It's got all the crazy stuff in there. What I like to do is I like it simple. So I like it. It's for space. It's a small pedal. It's got 3 foot switches on it, and you can make the foot switches whatever you want. So my setup is I have the first switch with my overdrive sound, and then you click on the first switch, and that switches to a clean sound that I came up with myself. So that's like my head. The first switch. It's my overdrive sound and my clean sound. The second switch is an overdrive tube screamer that they modeled in there. And the third switch is a delay that goes like a ping pong delay that goes. I use 2 cabs. And then I have my other pedal board that has a phaser on it, that has my wah on it, a whammy pedal. That goes in front. And that's my setup.
Wow,
it's a pretty cool looking pedal. I'm looking at it now.
Oh, are you looking at it now?
Yeah, because that's what I do.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about it is you can use it like that. It has XLRs on the front, so if I wanted to go through my speakers, but I wanted to go through the PA, you go to front of the house. You can go straight into your, it has you can go straight into your Mac or your computer, PC or Mac, and record your parts that way if you want it. It's really cool.
Wow, it's got USB on it.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's reasonably priced. It's only $600.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
it's starting to get. I've been using it for a while, and it's actually it's got a really good buzz now. That people are starting to try. You got to plug into it, and you got to. To me, it's a big thing. How it feels. It's hard to describe unless you're a guitar player, but it's how it feels.
Oh, we've had this conversation many times about all this technology and modeling stuff.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And where the feel gets lost, when you have a pair of in-ears and there's not a cabinet on stage,
yeah. Well, I mean that's the physical moving of air feel, but there's also the
reactance.
The sound,
touch,
and the touch, your touch with respect to the sound that's coming out of it. It's some of it just feels artificial, and it makes you play differently. And they're obviously getting closer all the time.
Every second it seems like.
Yeah, really.
But that's a cool little device.
That's cool. We'll have to check.
Yeah, we'll have to after we finish talking. We'll go out on.
And the guitar. I saw you playing a guitar. Speaking of Ibanez, it looked kind of like. I mean, I just looked really quickly in one of the videos, but like body configuration wise, it almost looked like Satch's, but it's got a reverse headstock. Is that your design or something?
Yeah. Well, basically what Ibanez was doing was they have an LA, they call it the LAC. It's an LA custom shop. So they were making me like some custom guitars for a couple of years. So like I kind of designed my own guitar colors and stuff like that. So they were really cool with me. So I did a bunch of guitars like that. And most recently now, it's weird the way the way guitar players are. You get a new guitar, and then that's like the guitar that I use now. And now I'm using really a stock. It's called the Prestige model. It's an S series. It's got a nice. It's a very thin body. It's mahogany. It's got a rosewood neck.
Yep.
I got those DiMarzio Steve Lukather's in there, which is the transition pickups. And it's got a very grassroots. It's very raw.
Yeah.
And, I like it.
Wizard 3 neck, right?
I think it is on the S's. I think it's a Wizard 3, which is it's not as flat. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Not as wide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's reinforced to no end. It's 5 pieces. It's got 2 walnut stripes.
How do you know all this?
Because I had one, remember? And
yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what the thing they did. I'll tell you what they did on my LACs. Basically, what they did was there was a Babinga stripe that used to go off the back.
Yes, yeah.
That used to go all the way through the headstock.
Yep, that was a 3-piece neck.
But recently, what Ibanez has been doing is it's really cool. If you go to the store and you pick up one of the Prestige models, what happens is it's actually now they use wood, but there's also there's these 2 very thin strips of titanium.
Yes.
Going all the way up through the headstock. I mean, when I say thin, it's a thin 2 thin lines going up the middle. And I swear to God, this guitar, I set it up, 6 months ago. The neck has not moved, so it's great. That's a great thing to have because if you're playing around, you're touring, the weather changes.
Oh yeah.
The neck does not move. You usually have to wait for a guitar to settle for a bit.
Yep.
But with this new technology, it's pretty cool.
So I see this pattern that they do, and it's not Ibanez. I'm just talking about guitar companies in general. If you look at like Guthrie Govan's Charvel, I think it's a single piece of maple, but they bake it. So it's crystallized. It's like it's been now for 50 years, and the neck is very stable. Well, some of these other companies, because it's a process and it's time and everything else, they do these multi-laminated necks, and they use either carbon fiber rods or titanium, pieces inside.
Titanium
them.
Stripes are cool. That's a cool
idea. Yeah.
And I can see where it lends rigidity that way.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know where that came from? That came from Bob Taylor.
Oh, really?
At Taylor Guitars, because Taylor Guitars... I just know too much of this crap. Okay, so Taylor guitars actually have 4 pieces of, I think, stainless inside of them, and they're thin ribbon strips. Now, they're inside the neck. You cannot see them. They're not visible from the outside.
In there.
4 little channels, and that makes those Taylor necks, like, rock solid.
Wow.
And because they are using a single piece of probably, sapelli or that mahogany type wood. And, on acoustic... You're susceptible to anything because of the way that the weather changes those. Yeah. So Bob really perfected how those necks were made. The other guitar companies saw that, and they were like, because forever they were using carbon fiber rods.
Yeah.
But you're taking out a hunk of wood.
Right.
It's like a 1/4 inch. It's about the size of the truss rod, right?
Yeah. And 2 of them.
Yeah, and you're putting them in there, and some guys were like, I kind of noticed that it's kind of thin. And that was the way my Carvin was.
Ah.
It did. It kind of was thin. You know, you had incredible sustain, but it just kind of lost something. Now they figured, you know what? Metal transitions vibrations like faster than anything.
Yeah, you could just put a little slit in there instead of a whole chamber.
Exactly. And if you put them vertically to the perpendicular to the fingerboard, you got crazy strength.
Oh, for sure.
And it's titanium, and it sounds cool.
Idea. That's a great idea.
Just to say it.
Titanium. Well, that's very cool.
Yeah, man.
And hopefully we'll get to hear this rig in person at some time soon.
Yeah, that'd be kind of
cool.
cool.
I'm curious to hear the pedal and see the guitar, and it was very cool looking. Now, does what you're playing now? I assume it's more of a production model, so it probably doesn't have the reverse headstock.
This one doesn't have the reverse headstock. I got into a reverse headstock thing at one point. Everything was reversed, but you know what? It does change the way the guitar feels. A lot of people don't realize that, because what happens is usually when the guitar, when the guitar is the other way around, the length of the string to the headstock is different. And people say, "Oh, you know what? It doesn't matter. The locking nut is that." It makes a difference. I don't know what it is, but you basically on a reverse headstock, the lowest strings have a little less tension on it.
That's pretty wild.
That is pretty wild. And somebody's going to argue that point to death, that it cannot make a difference if there's a locking nut. There's no way.
Rob, I appreciate that, because I'm sure the email will be blowing up as soon as we release this.
We get it all the time. Dude, it doesn't make any difference. I can't make a difference.
It can't make a difference at all.
Yeah. Well, here's a guy that's played them both and is telling you that it makes a difference. So.
It goes back even to that. It started with Gibson has a guitar that they're famous for. Is it the Explorer that has the reverse headstock?
Yeah.
They can have them. Mostly they go the correct way.
Whatever guitar, Gibson came out with a guitar that had that reverse headstock on it.
Yeah.
And players back then even said that it did something to how it felt.
A Firebird.
Right, the Firebird.
Right, the Firebird.
The Firebird. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. It's a Firebird too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I could see it.
But that's why a lot of guys do the and I think Fender probably reissued it like this a few times. The reverse headstock on like a Strat, the Hendrix thing.
The Voodoo Strat.
The Voodoo Strat. Okay,
had a reverse headstock.
Yeah, I mean, granted that doesn't have a locking nut, so yes, it has to make a difference.
Yeah,
but it it does make a difference.
Sure.
In the entire string length. It changes.
Yeah, I'm sure there's vibration that transfers from the nut over to the, because I mean, think about this, right? If you play a guitar, I've even had them. I had one with a locking nut. You play it and you hear, ring, and you'd be like, what is that noise? And you realize it was the strings ringing above the nut.
Above the nut, right?
Yeah,
even though it's locked.
Yeah. And so it was like, well, obviously that vibration is transferring through the whole neck.
Sympathetic vibration. I mean, that's like how
the springs.
That's like how the springs or a chorale sitar. Works.
Yeah.
It's all sympathetic vibration.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works everywhere.
So screw those guys that say it doesn't make a difference.
That's right. That's right. Put a little microphone behind your locking nut.
Tell you what.
Record that, see what you get. Go ahead.
That would be interesting.
That's right.
And we're taking a new leaf now. Screw you guys with your theories.
That's right. Shut up and play your guitar.
You're scientists.
Frank said it best. Shut up and play your guitar.
Exactly.
So, Rob, we could probably go for another half an hour on this tangent, but I think we'll just shut up and let you play your guitar, because that's what you do.
Yes.
And thank you just so much for taking the time to be on the show, man.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It was a blast.
Oh,
cool,
yeah, man.
Cool.
And remember, his website will live on our website in
perpetuity.
That's right.
That's right.
With the show. And, you definitely give him some love. Go over there. Check out his stuff, man. The guy rocks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And,
thank you.
Very, very good chance that you may run into him at a seminar somewhere or something like that, Go say hi, and we heard you on Amps and Axis.
And one thing before we let go.
Okay.
I want to go back just as one little spot.
Okay.
Joe Satriani reached out to you during a time when Joe Satriani was really getting his career going.
Oh, yeah.
In those early... That tells you something about Joe Satriani.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very,
very nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mensch, man, when they do that,
It's down to earth. There's... it's not the rock star thing going on, and to say the same thing. Steve is the same way, man. Steve is both of those guys. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, we talked to Andy Alt,
Yeah,
who
I know
makes
Andy.
A Little Thunder, that pickup, and he works for Steve, and what was it? He went over Steve. First off, he ends up with Steve's wife. He ends up driving the car because everybody had too much to drink. They end up at his house. They stay at his house. He wakes up the next day. He says he knows HTML. One thing leads to another. He's the guy who controls the whole site, and he's involved with Steve. And Steve was like this, just this down to earth guy.
Yeah.
Andy is a great photographer as well.
Oh well,
Takes good pictures.
Yeah, I follow his Instagram. He takes some crazy pictures. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. He just had a birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Andy.
Yeah.
Rob, you got one coming up? We'll wish you a happy birthday now.
I do. It's next Wednesday.
Hey, look at that.
Hey, there you go.
Happy
Libra.
birthday.
Libra. All right, Rob. Well, again, we want to thank you very much, and much continued success in this wacky world of music.
Yeah.
And I hope you continue to have a lot of fun and success.
Yeah,
So,
man.
Thank you so much. I love the
enjoy.
show, and I'll keep plugging you guys as well.
Thank you, man.
Awesome. We totally
We can always
appreciate
use
it.
that.
Absolutely.
Most of our artists go, okay, I'm off of that. Thanks.
No, they don't, Mick.
I know. I'm
Jesus.
just kidding.
All right, Rob. Thanks again, man, and have a great rest of the evening, and hope to catch you live sometime.
Thank you.
And there you have the story.
Man, that's so cool.
Another New York, North Jersey-ish guy, and
It just goes to show, and we've said this 1,000 times, you just keep going. And you don't have to be the household name.
Right.
Too many times, I think we, as humans, we just get that in our head. Well, if you're not Eddie Van Halen, you're not successful.
right.
It's like, are you kidding me? You know how many musicians that we don't know?
Well, you know what that would mean? That would mean there's just one musician.
Exactly.
Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody else just goes home.
Yeah, it's just a poof.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Just keep going.
Just keep
have
going.
Fun. Keep
Yeah.
doing. Again, keep saying yes. You find your you find your niche.
Mhm.
You do. I
Yeah.
mean, he's still having fun recording. He's recording and has run into some great people over the years,
Yeah.
and they've helped. And now he's he's going to get to take his music back out on the road and just again have some fun, make some money, and it's music.
Here's what I'll say. I saw a video with Glenn Fricker, our audio guy up in Canada there. He really had a good video that it must just came out. I saw it today. He said, does it matter if you're out with crazy expensive equipment? And he said, well, he saw a band. Then they were playing line sixes, and he goes, it was horrible audio. He goes, but they sounded good. They were together. And then the band came up after him, and it was all like, Marshalls and stuff, and he says they sounded really good. But what he noticed is when he was in the crowd, didn't make a difference to the average person. So he said, the main thing is play in tune and learn the songs. The
True.
equipment thing will come.
Yeah, well, I have to take that one step further. I think you should play what makes you comfortable.
Yes.
And if you find, a virtual thing that you're comfortable with, and, for you, it works well enough live, or maybe you really, really love it. Who knows? But, that's fine. And if it takes some kind of really cool real amp to do that, and that's what you need to play out with in order to enjoy it more, because we all know if you enjoy it more, you just play better, and it conveys, and everybody enjoys it more.
Yep.
So just play what you enjoy playing, and that's how it's going to translate best to your audience.
John Sullivan said it too. He says, I'm not cut out to play the Les Paul scale. And so he plays 25 and a half. Doesn't make it wrong.
Oh, no.
And
that's what I was saying before about picking up a guitar, two different guitars, playing the same thing on it. One of them
is going to work.
It's going to work better than the other,
Yeah.
So just play what makes you happy, man. Play what makes you play better and play happier, because everybody that's listening to you is going to enjoy it more.
Unless, of course, you play angry music.
Right.
So then you'll want to make them angrier.
Right.
I like that part.
All right, angry man.
So until next time, my friend.
But you can't be angry.
No, I'm Mick Marcelino, and you
are not Angry Jeff.
We're always saying
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter at Amps and Axes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage, ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.